Today's edition of The Conversation, the ongoing conflict in Ethiopia's Tigray region has continued to draw global attention as efforts to get the warring parties to sheath their swords have proved abortive. Diplomats are now warning that the offensive by the Eritrean and Ethiopian armies could result in a civilian bloodbath. We'll also be taking updates from Tunisia, where protesters have taken to the streets to say they have had enough of President Kais Said's stay in office and are demanding his resignation. These will be our major focus on The Conversation today. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Now on our first topic, the latest surge in violence between Tigray and the Ethiopian government is stirring grave concerns. Tigrayan commanders claim that Eritrea has launched an offensive in support of Ethiopian government forces, and diplomats continue to worry that the situation could leave a devastating impact on civilians already in the middle of a dire humanitarian crisis. According to news reports, aid distribution in Tigray has been largely hampered by lack of fuel and a communications shutdown across the region. Last Friday, UN partner organization, the International Rescue Committee, reported that one of its workers was killed in an attack in Tigray while delivering aid to women and children in the town of Shire. Just last month, African Union mediated talks were due to take place in South Africa but were postponed. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, in a statement, reiterated his full support to an African Union-led mediation process and reaffirmed the United Nations' readiness to support the urgent resumption of talks in order to reach a lasting political settlement to the conflict. Now, joining us on The Conversation to unravel all this, we have Maebel, Gebremedhin, co-founder and president of the Tigray Action Committee, joining us from New York. We also have Dr. Fasika Amdeslasie, a surgeon at Ayder Comprehensive Specialized Hospital from Mekelle in Tigray. We also have joining us on The Conversation Samrawit, Silva, advocate for Tigray, who joins us from New Hampshire in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Conversation. All right, so if you're with me, I'll begin with Maebel, if you can hear me. And let's take it back to in August, where we had a cessation of hostilities was agreed upon in March this year. But clashes renewed in August between the Tigray and Ethiopia's government. I mean, a lot of people were happy when there was a cessation of hostilities agreed between Tigray and Ethiopian government. So what exactly went wrong? Why was there resumption of fighting in August?
Well, what happened is that Tigray has been under siege for almost an entire year, actually maybe even a little bit longer than that. It's been almost since the siege began on June 21st, 2021. So it's been over a year that Tigray has been under siege. And what that means is that there has been no aid, there's been no food, there's been nothing. Nothing's been able to get into Tigray, and people have not been able to get out of Tigray. They've been under siege this entire time. It's been a non-stop blockade. So essentially, what needed to happen was the siege needed to be broken. Tigrayans need to survive. We need to live. Those are our families that are trapped. Dr. Fasika is currently trapped. And so Tigray decided that it was time to break the siege, and they had to do something. And that's what happened. But what really, really started it was that the Ethiopian government started saying that they were going to bomb, they were going to do this and that, and that's what they started to do. An elementary school was bombed, children died. Since then, so many people have been dying from random drone attacks. And so that's what happened, and that's what started. And now we're here today where people have been dying. This week alone, I think it was over 1,200 people had already died within a week, just from the onslaught of bombs and massacres that have already started.
Okay, now talking about this onslaught of bombs and attacks, I'll continue with Silva. Now, the two sides agreed for cessation of hostilities, and Maebel rightly said that due to lack of humanitarian aid, this siege needed to be broken. Who do we blame for this bomb attacks going on at the border areas? I mean, because the Ethiopian government is saying that they held on to their pact, and the Tigray government also is saying that they also held on to their part. So who exactly led these bombardments?
Yeah, so I think I'll start with saying, just to touch on the humanitarian truce. On Ethiopian side, there was never a humanitarian truce just because starvation has been weaponized. So hunger is a tool of war. There was never an end to the hunger, so the Ethiopian government was still waging war for nearly 2 years. That has never stopped. There's never been a humanitarian truce on the Ethiopian government's end. And we know that the Ethiopian government continues to lie about the atrocities that they are committing. So I blame the Ethiopian government, and if they do not want to take the blame, then they would allow independent investigations and they would reconnect Tigray. Other than that, then they're getting away with the lies. They can just say it wasn't us bombing them, but most definitely the Ethiopian government.
Okay, let's bring in Dr. Fasika. I would like your take on this. And since August, according to report, a lot of people have died. What exactly is the humanitarian situation right now in the Tigray region?
Thank you very much. In Tigray, it is one of the most deliberately neglected humanitarian crisis in the entire world. And we are witnessing a very bad situation. Imagine yourself being a human being in Tigray. You are not a combatant. You are a mother, or you are a child, or you are a father trying to support your family, an elderly. So basically, you don't have food in your house. The nearby health center is not functional, and you cannot go to the nearby health center because ambulance services are not functional. And then when you come to the bigger hospitals, they don't have essential medicine because medicine have not come in for the last 17 months. Medicine like insulin, anti-malarials, HIV, anti-HIV, anti-TB, which are essential. And in the hospital, you don't have oxygen, you don't have IV fluids. So this has been going on for the last 17 months. And then in the region, there is a chance of that you are not feeding well, so you are malnourished. And then the socio-economic status of the society has been attacked or hit because banks are not functional, cash has not come in for 17 months. So basically, you are starving in your house. If you get sick, you don't go anywhere to get treatment. And then on top of that, there is war is going on, and then there were airstrikes, shellings, bombings. So you have injured people. They come to the hospital, and then they don't get treatment because we don't have basic life-saving medicines like even IV fluids. The oxygen is not functional. So this humanitarian crisis is the most neglected crisis affecting all civilians. So we are basically Africans, we are also Ethiopians, and we are basically human beings, mostly. All these three, we are denied. Our patients are denied to exist, denied to survive.
Dr. Fasika, how are the people be able to handle this lack of humanitarian aid right now? Because I believe you were there at the moment. How are the people handling it?
So a lot of people have been humiliated. They have become subhumans. A lot of people are begging outside for medicine, for food. Families are dispersed. You see a lot of people who have lost weight, who are hopeless, and then it's basically very saddening. You don't want, if you have a choice, you don't want to be in this situation. But sadly, people are they have lost hope in humanity. They have lost hope in the so-called world community. They have lost hope in the so-called Ethiopian government. That's how I see it. People I meet, the people I talk to, because they are denied to survive. They are begging for food. They are begging for medicine. They are watching their families die right and left. And one thing I forgot, in addition to the injured people, we have a lot of rape victims in the region who are denied healthcare, denied basic healthcare because lack of medicine, lack of aid. And this is a region where international humanitarian law is not being respected. And it is deliberate and it is neglected. It's not, and then the information blackout itself makes it hidden so that not everybody has the access to tell about it to the world or to the rest of Africa. So it's a very sad situation.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Fasika. I really feel for what's going on in Tigray. But I'd like to bring in Maebel into this now. And this is from UN investigators, which said earlier on that there's been evidence that starvation is being used as a weapon of war by the Ethiopian government against the Tigrayan front, amounting to war crimes and crimes against humanity. Now, Tigray government is saying that, and UN investigators are saying that the Ethiopian government has used starvation as a weapon of war. But Dr. Fasika right now mentioned rape ongoing at the area. So I wonder, I mean, who do we put the blame on? Is it the Ethiopian government that is perpetrating this act? And do you really believe that the Ethiopian government is using starvation as a weapon of war?
I absolutely do. It's not even necessarily something that I need to believe. You've said it yourself. There are UN reports. There are multiple reports. There have been many, many different news sources that have shown that starvation is being used as a weapon of war. Rape has been and continues to be used as a weapon of war. The women of Tigray have experienced some of the worst atrocities that have ever even been thought of. What is happening in Tigray is genocide. They are trying to make sure no Tigrayan survives. There have been many articles that have come out and stories that have been told about what the women have experienced from having hot rods inserted into their vaginas so that they can never have children again, from turning schools into rape factories. These are African women. These are African people that are being allowed to be massacred and raped at mass. African women that look like you and me are sitting here and being raped after rape after rape after rape. There have been stories. There's one story that will always stick out to me, and her name was Sunnight. That wasn't her real name. That was an alias that she used. But this woman went from her hometown to Maebel, which is the capital city of Tigray, because there's quote unquote relative peace in Maebel compared to the rest of Tigray. But what is peace in the middle of genocide? It's not actual peace. But what she was trying to do was trying to save her son, who at the time I believe was 12. And I'm a mother, and I have children, I have sons. And so when I think of her, I think of me, and I think of my children. She was doing her best to save her son from the onslaught of the Eritrean forces as well as the Ethiopian ones. And she took a bus, was trying her best to get to Maebel. Instead, what happened to her was she was kidnapped from that bus, taken off the bus, and then taken to some area where she was tied to a tree, drugged, and raped for 10 days. She woke up from her drugging, realized what had happened to her, looked down to see that her son had had his neck slit and died in front of her, and she had no idea because she was drugged so heavily. And so she has to live with what was happened to her physically, but she also has to live with the fact that her son died watching those horrific acts done to her, and died as if he was a goat. Next slide. That is what the Ethiopian government is doing to its own citizens. Tigrayans are Ethiopian citizens. They are Africans who are being slaughtered by their own federal government. They are not a random group of people that are just living somewhere in space. No, these are Ethiopians that are being slaughtered, massacred, raped, starved by their own government. Their own prime minister has asked neighboring Eritrea to come in and slaughter, rape, and starve its own citizens. I cannot imagine this happening anywhere else in the world. And the shock and disappointment that Tigrayans feel for the rest of Africa to not say anything, for the rest of the world to not say anything, and to allow this to happen for 2 years straight. Tigrayan women have been raped for 2 years straight and are being raped right now because no one is stopping it. No one is helping us. We need help. We need our neighbors to care. We need Africans to care about Africans. We need women to care about women, because that is what's happening. Women like you, women like me, are being raped and their children are being killed, but not before they see their mothers being raped. This is, it's horrible what's happening in Tigray. It's horrible.
Definitely horrible, Maebel. I do feel for what's going on in Tigray. I mean, as you said rightly, I'm a woman myself, and I cannot imagine someone going through such torture by forces. Now, still trying to be objective in all this, Silva, I know that in the matter of war, soldiers can be soldiers. Can we really absolve Tigrayan forces of not also being perpetrators of this dastardly act? Because we need to find out who these perpetrators are, even though we're saying Ethiopian government, Eritrean government. Can we really absolve Tigrayan forces of not also being part of this dastardly act?
Thank you. I think the world and the international community wants to kind of put both parties on the same surface level and the same to the same extent of what's being done, and that's something that we cannot do. But to your point, if we have independent investigations, which is what Tigrayan advocates since the beginning of time have been asking for, our questions would be solved. But having the Ethiopian government refuse independent investigations, not allow medias from outside in, is a big giveaway that they are guilty, that they are hiding something. And so I think that it's also very harmful to this entire situation to run with whatever the Ethiopian government is saying and putting out, and just being mindful of trying to put the people that are fighting for survival, that have absolutely no other option than to fight, on the same level as a federal government that invited a neighboring country into a region to exterminate them, to force them into submission. But again, independent investigations, which we have been asking for, would clear up a lot of these questions.
Okay, Maebel, I'm going to throw this question back to you, and this coming from Ethiopia's permanent representative to the UN in Geneva, that is Gebremedhin. Now, she said investigators had ignored atrocities by the Tigray People's Liberation Front, which Addis Ababa considers a terrorist group. Now, what are your thoughts on the TPLF being labeled a terrorist group, and what exactly are the grievances? Why are we having this issue ongoing for over 24 months? Can you hear me, Maebel?
I'm so sorry, I lost you for a moment, but I can hear you now.
Okay, so I was talking about this Ethiopia's permanent representative to the UN in Geneva, that's Gebremedhin. Now, she said investigators, or rather he said that investigators had ignored atrocities by the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, which Addis Ababa considers a terrorist group. So I wanted your thoughts on the TPLF being labeled a terrorist group, and what exactly are the grievances? I mean, what has led to this 24 months of war going on?
Well, I definitely cannot speak from the Ethiopian government's side. I'm not a part of any government at all or any type of political party. But from what I'm understanding is that there has been a lot of hatred towards Tigrayans, and a lot of that has been perpetrated by the Ethiopian government. If you look at some of the speeches that the prime minister has given himself in Addis Ababa, it's been very hateful towards Tigrayans. If you look through the history of what's happened since the Prosperity Party has been in office, it's been incredibly hateful towards Tigrayans. If there are atrocities happening from any force, then people need to be held accountable. I do not defend anyone to rape anyone. I don't defend any group to starve anyone. And so if whomever is committing crimes, all need to be held accountable. Now, if we are speaking about Tigray Defense Force, I'd like to just quickly state that the Tigray Defense Force is full of Tigrayans who are literally fighting for their survival, as Samrawit mentioned earlier. When we speak of Tigray's women who have been raped and who have been starved and who will continue to be under siege, these women are going and defending themselves because they understand that then no one else is going to. And so if we're talking about quote unquote rebel forces and what have you, these are Tigrayans who are fighting back because they don't have an option. Now, when it comes to TPLF and different political parties, that is politics, and that is not something of my interest. That is politics. What I'm here to speak about is humanitarian issues and the humanitarian crisis that's currently happening. That's what matters. The Ethiopian government has stated they are not interested in peace negotiations. They're not interested in cessation of hostilities. A letter came out this morning, my time, excuse me, I know it's afternoon your time, but a letter came out today stating that the Ethiopian government is not going to cease hostilities. Instead, they are going to apologize for any civilian or NGO worker or whomever is in Tigray that gets killed. That's what they've said. If you die, you die. We're sorry about it, but we're going to continue killing as much as we can. Who then is to be blamed for the Tigrayans that are dying? Who then is to be blamed for this war continuing on? Who then is to be blamed? if there's only one side that is saying they're not willing to stop hostilities, they're not willing to stop killing people, while every other side is saying, we don't want to fight, we want to negotiate, we want people to survive through this, not just in Tigray, but throughout Ethiopia, who is then to be blamed? There's only one group that actually wants this to continue. There's only one group that is not only killing Tigrayans, killing people in Oromia, killing people in Somalia, in the Somali region rather, excuse me, killing people in Gambela, killing people throughout the entire country of Ethiopia. There's only one group, and that is the Ethiopian government. And so who else is to be blamed?
Okay, thank you so much, Maebel. Now, Dr. Fasika, I wonder, because you mentioned so many things going on at the Tigray, which you are presently, rape going on, starvation and all that. Now, tell me, how has international organizations helped in aid delivery towards Tigray?
So the international response for the humanitarian crisis has been deliberately neglected, as I have because international humanitarian law is a law that's meant to make sure that civilians, non-combatants, to make sure that they survive, to maximize their survival, unhindered aid access, giving medicine, giving food, these kinds of laws have been passed in the world, and they kind of are respected. But in Tigray, we have a lot of civilians, like mothers, children, patients like HIV patients, diabetics, pregnant mothers, elderly. Such kinds of millions of people have been denied food, and everybody knows that. Those who are supposed to bring food, they have not brought food. The amount that they brought in a 17 months time, they brought only probably for 2 months. The 15 months is unaccounted. Those who were supposed to bring medicine, they have brought some, but it's not more than 5% of what is required. So while who caused the war, how the war is going to be stopped is debatable. It may take time, but what should be done to the people, to the civilians who are not combatants, who are citizens, who are human beings, who should be subjected under the international humanitarian law. This is not being respected. Maybe because of political reasons, because of interest of governments, or it may be because of lack of capacity. But that has to be acknowledged. The world, these international organizations, these United Nations, WHO, WFP, whatever, they have failed civilians who they were supposed to protect. They are not protecting them. Just a person has to imagine, if I am a person in Tigray, I'm not a combatant. This is not politics. This is basic humanity. We are human beings. Our patients are human beings. We are citizens of Ethiopia. We are Africans. Why is every organization who is supposed to take care of civilians is not taking care of us? Why have not they brought food? Because they know that food is scarce. There was deliberate destruction of food stores. The people were not able to plant for the last 17 months. And so basically, it was in last June, almost 17 months back, the WFP and OCHA and the other UN organizations declared there is famine in Tigray. 17 months, the response is so poor. There is a deliberate neglect. And everybody knows this, and we are being denied as human beings. We are being denied survival as Africans. So this is very sad. So the war, resolution of the war, how it should be conducted, who caused it, what is the reason, this is debatable. It can take time. That's politics. Let the politicians take care of it. But how about the civilians? Those helpless people. How should we address them? Should be the issue. And it's not even in the top agenda. We are busy discussing about who caused the war, who is doing what, who is blaming each other. Okay, that can continue. But why should we fail our patients? Those helpless human beings, those helpless Tagaru.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Fasika. I understand there's civilian disaster going on right now at the moment, and these are very serious accusations of this aid not being enough. But, you know, while we're looking at the reasons why we have this political instability, is because of the humanitarian situation going on. So most times we have to also look at the source of the problems and how we can stop this, because of this political situations going on. People are dying, like you've rightly said. And I'm going to come back to Silva because these are very serious situations. Now, if you look at political happenings going on, we're seeing mobilization of Eritrean troops now adding to the war going on. So we have Ethiopian government and Eritrean government against the Tigrayan for a region. Now, what exactly is in it for Eritrea? I mean, why would you leave your own region and come fight a war in Tigray? What exactly is in it for them?
Yes, so I think I'll bring it back to the Nobel Peace Prize that the leader of Ethiopia won for ending a long-time conflict with Eritrea, which we now know was just a war pact against Tigray. So Eritrea is on a revenge mission from previous conflicts that were happening within Ethiopia and Eritrea. And so we have Eritreans from the very beginning invading Tigray. And I think that is forgotten because a lot of times when people talk about what's happening in Tigray, they say it's a civil war, which is the Ethiopian government's rhetoric to try and make sure other international organizations are not interfering. But from the very beginning, this war has been by Eritrean and Ethiopian government. And it's very important that we understand that because at that point, it's not a civil war. And also, it brings up how the Ethiopian government had lied about Eritrean presence, and they have done a lot of damage, committed so many atrocities, massacres after massacres. They are fueled off hate. So everything that's happening to the women, to the children, is going to continue. And now that we're hearing that Shire and other places might be under Eritrean control, things are going to get even worse when we thought, how could it get worse? The people are already being starved to death, they're being bombed, they're dying from medical deprivation, but now under Eritrean control, the rapings, intensified rapings are going to start because taking losses on battlefields, they are going to take it out even stronger than we've seen on our people, on our children.
Okay, now, Maebel, I wonder because we saw talks from the WHO chief Tedros Gebremedhin, who is also Ethiopian, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, they've all talked about this and calling for cessation of hostilities. I wonder, do you feel these talks of concern by the international community, such as the European Union also, has had any impact on any of the siege? Or are they just talking? Because Dr. Fasika talked about lack of aid going on in the Tigray region. Are we having just talks from the international community?
It's literally only talks. Tigray has been under siege for 2 years, and 2 years of concerns, 2 years of troubled thoughts, 2 years of prayers, 2 years of this and that. It's literally just talks. Dr. Tedros is actually Tigrayan, and his family is trapped as well. He has not been able to talk to the majority of his family that's in Tigray. He's understanding what we're going through. All he can do is speak on behalf of Tigrayans like the rest of us. My entire family is in Tigray, and there's very little of us that are in the Western countries. And so this is directly affecting us. This is directly affecting me. And all the international community has done is just talk. It's been very, very little. If more had been done, Tigray would not be under siege. And it's very, very disappointing, incredibly disappointing. For Shire, which Samrawit just mentioned earlier, for that to be taken over by Eritrean forces means that the town that has one of the highest amount of IDPs is being taken over by Eritrean forces. Eritrean forces, when they originally went to Tigray in 2020, November 2020, the first thing that they did was massacre hundreds of people in a church. And now they're going to do the same. IDPs are people who are internally displaced. It's internally displaced people essentially becoming refugees in their own area, in their own country. They become refugees. And what these people are doing are starving. They are starving. That's what they've been doing for the past 2 years in Shire, and now they're going to be massacred by Eritrean forces. For the international community to allow Eritrea, an invading force, an invading country, into Tigray to take over an IDP town, a town full of IDP. These are hundreds of thousands of IDPs within Shire who are now terrified of what's going to happen to them. Our families are in Shire. We are terrified about what's going to happen to them. This is one of the most For the three of us here, this is one of the most anxiety-inducing days that we've had in a very long time. I am anxious today because I know how far Eritrea can go. I've experienced it with my family. All three of us have experienced what Eritrea can do, what Ethiopia can do, and we are terrified today. Shire's IDPs are children. They are mothers. They are the elderly, These are people who cannot defend themselves. They are IDPs. So we're honestly very, very nervous today. And the international community just continues to talk. Talk is not enough. Action was supposed to happen on November 5th, 2020. We are 2 years in. Talk is not enough.
Okay, now, aside the international community, what about the African Union mediated peace talks? Now, this was supposed to happen between the Ethiopian government and the Tigray regional government. It was scheduled for 8th of October in South Africa, but it was postponed. I wonder if you have any reasons why, especially when we have this mobilization of Eritrean troops. You would have expected that talks would be intensified by the AU body. So do you know why it was postponed?
Yeah, the reason that the AU peace talks were postponed was for logistical reasons. And that is one of the most embarrassing reasons I've ever heard of my entire life. The AU, the African Union, this is literally what the African Union was made to do. If you go to their website, you see what their mission and vision is. It is for a prosperous, peaceful Africa, entire continent of Africa. It's there, you can read it. And yet what they've allowed to happen in Africa is genocide after genocide after genocide. The level of disappointment I feel in the African Union is immense. They can do so much, and yet they refuse to. When the peace talks were supposed to happen on October 8th, the letter was released asking for Tigray's government to join in these peace talks. The Tigray government immediately said yes. The Ethiopian government did not respond. And then what happened? One of the leaders who were supposed to be there, I believe it was Kenyatta, who responded and said, I'm supposed to be here, yet I know nothing of it. I don't know what date. I don't know what location. I know it's in South Africa, but I don't have any details. They have no logistics planned out. And what they've done is allow people to die, allow people to be killed. I meet with the State Department regularly. Here in the United States, I meet with legislators and speak to multiple people and have asked why, what are the logistical issues? And I've heard whispers that the AU honestly just didn't want to do it right away, that they were willing to wait and see. Well, wait and see means that within this week, we are on October 16th, I think today is, it might be the 17th as well. But either way, people are dying. 1,200 people have died this week. Today, we are terrified about the number of IDPs that are going to die from Shire. We are allowing just people to die here and there willy-nilly because the African Union wants to wait and see. The African Union, what else are they here to do than save African lives? What is the point of the African Union other than to save Africans? How many Rwanda genocides do we need? How many Tigray genocides do we need? How many people need to die for the African Union to actually do what it's meant to do? I'm so incredibly disappointed.
Okay, Dr. Fasika, I want to hear your own view. I mean, are you confident in the AU peace envoys? Maebel has given us the reasons why it was postponed, and according to them, it's logistical reasons. Do you still have faith in this AU peace envoys that they will bring the delivered peace that is needed in Tigray?
I have lost hope in Africa. Sorry to say this. I'm not even sure whether I should say this. Africa is a land of millions, hundreds of millions of people. But it seems the lives of these people who inhabit Africa does not matter. What's happening to us now is going to happen elsewhere in Africa. So maybe it's because of the poverty, or maybe because of other reasons. We are not very important people. And then the organization who has taken responsibility to administer these unimportant people, us, is also very not concerned. Then they don't care whether 100,000 or 1 million Africans die. So, and even so, I have lost faith. I never had faith for that matter. And this shows why people migrate out of Africa, because Africa does not treat you as a human being. It's a land of survival of the fittest. Probably all those who have the money can survive. But the rest of more than 90% of Africans who are poor, then they are left to die, left to whatever came on their way and kill them. So this organization has never stood for Africans, as my understanding. And now me seeing my faith being dependent on this organization, seeing my faith being dependent on this organization, makes me feel very sad and hopeless. And I don't think Africa Union can ever bring anything to this continent. And we are the living witness. Look, 2 years and 17 months complete siege. Salary, I have not been paid my salary. I cannot go to the bank to take out the money I saved to buy food. I am begging for food from people abroad and from people in Addis. And I am the better off. I have survived, I am still well nourished, and millions of people are hungry, are sick without medicine. And the Africans, they don't, the Africa Union, not the Africans, the Africa Union, I don't think they care about these things. So what else can I say? I don't think the Africa Union has ever stood for Africans.
Okay, Silva, these are very serious things going on in Tigray, and it's so sad to see Africans not believing in the African Union, of which, just like Maebel said, this was the reason why it was founded. So if African Union cannot have the back of Africans, then who then has the back of Africans? So, Silva, I wonder, because globally we're dealing with this Russia-Ukraine war, and recently there was a UN vote where a lot of people were against the fact that Russia was attacking Ukraine. Do you think that a lot of attention has been moved towards this, and even for the African Union, even ECOWAS has shifted the attention and they've lost priority of what is most important?
Thank you. Yes, it most definitely has, and we've seen that in many ways. One of which being the International Criminal Court sending one of its members directly into Ukraine when we've been asking for independent investigations to happen. We've also seen it in the way the reporters talk about what's happening in Ukraine, specifically saying these are civilized people, these are people with blue eyes and blonde hair. So the world has not made it